Keatron, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your certifications and how you planned those. And then as well as the other part of the question is, does experience outweigh certifications or vice versa? And kind of what you see there.
Yeah, so that's a really good question too. Now, currently I've got over, like 70 different certifications in different things. And initially I did have a plan for how I would approach them. And it started out with just looking at what was out there and what they covered. And, I looked at the time, CISSP was kind of like where I wanted to be, because it was looked at as, if you get this one, it's kind of the grandfather of all. But then what happened is, as I got into it, I learned what the certifications actually were. And now I even recommend to people, CISSP may be a good next logical point after like Security Plus or something like that, because it covers a lot of different things very shallowly. And that allows you to get an idea of what it is you really want to do and specialize in, because you kind of touch on all of it with something like CISSP or CISM. So my plan was to get, I had a very solid, like I said, I have this big Excel sheet. I had in there first A+, Network Plus, and the logic behind that was I needed to learn the basics first. And then after Network Plus, I went to Security Plus and all the Microsoft like MCSC, and then I moved into the security stuff after that. And that was kind of my plan, was to make sure that once I got into the hacking, I actually knew how operating systems worked. I knew how networking worked. Because again, once you hack a system, you go and get, Metasploit Pro or whatever, and you compromise a system. What are you going to do once you get on that system if you don't understand how the operating system works, if you don't understand how networks work? So I was afraid of that. I've always been afraid of being underprepared. So I always just stack and make sure I plan it out. The other reason I think this question is really good is because the whole experience outweighing certifications things, that's kind of a big argument in the industry. And my take on it, what I always tell people is, definitely if I'm hiring someone to do a specific job that requires a specific technical skill, if they've got a lot of experience doing that, that's probably going to be more important to me than them having the certifications, because I can get them the certifications really quickly. But there's also the flip side of that argument, which is, for yourself, for your own personal goals, Camille, if you were trying to do this, what I would say to you is, well, experience is something that you get over time.
Sure.
There's the only way to get 5 years experience is to work for 5 years. And
Right.
it takes a minimum of 5 years. But the certifications you can get right now. So you got these two things, you got to get both. You got to have experience and you got to have the certs. So why would you delay one, when you can get that now, while you're trying to wait until get the opportunity to get the other? Because experience is definitely going to probably come from an opportunity that either someone gives you or an opportunity you create for yourself. But either way, while you're provisioning that opportunity or waiting for it, you should still be getting the certifications, because you can do that now, and you can do that really quickly and increase your net worth as far as a cybersecurity career right away, just by getting some of the certifications.
Right. No, and that's a great point. I think there's a little bit of, again, a gray area in that space, because like you said, certifications can get them so quick. Like, someone who has a little bit of knowledge and has some of those prerequisites, they could sign up for a couple courses right in a row and pass those all, and all of a sudden become so much more valuable. But also experience where they've done this hands-on work for several years is also of incredible value as well. So that is a really interesting question. I think it's really a paradigm of how that works in this industry.
Yeah, it's definitely important, because I can remember, when I was going through my Microsoft stuff, there was a service that Microsoft introduced, I think with Windows 2000, when they went to Windows 2000 MCSE, and it was something called Volume Shadow Copy Service. And what that means is anything on your system, if you right click it and turn on something called versioning, what it does is, if you were to delete a Word document, for example, and modify it, well, every time you make a change, Windows creates the previous version of that document. So you can go into your computer, even with the versions of Windows that we use now, right click any document, go to previous versions. And if you have the shadow service on, you can see all the different versions and actually restore it. So if you modified a document the wrong way for the last 5 hours and you want to go back to where it was before, you can do that just within the operating system. Whereas right before that, we would have to go get backup tapes and all kinds of stuff like that to restore those documents. And that was a service that was key, because what happened for me is I went into an interview once where they gave a scenario on how would you go about restoring these documents if they got deleted. It was a network engineer position. And the person that everybody else that interviewed is what the manager told me, was that they said, yeah, you would, go into your backups and restore it from backup and do this, this, and that. And I said, well, I would just, make sure volume shadow copy service is on, and then I would just restore the previous version. And they were like, well, what's a volume shadow copy service? And I was like, well, that came out. So it led to a whole 20-minute conversation of me explaining to them what that was and showing them. And the only reason I knew it is because a month before I went and did the latest MCSC certification, and that was one of the new things that they added. So it was a situation where I clearly got the job. There were people more experienced than me and had more, definitely more hands-on experience, but they didn't know that thing. And I knew
Right.
that one thing because I was up on my certifications. So I think
Right.
it works both ways, and you really just want to try to have both.
Mm-hmm.
One that you have control over that you can fix right now is a certification. The experience one you have less control over. You just have to wait and get that.